Are you a person in recovery, or perhaps you identify as someone who has compulsive behavior that you're wanting to let go of? Well, if that's the case, this is going to be a really worthwhile conversation today with Ken Dunn. This is Eddie with a Mindful Emergence, where Margaret and I offer mindfulness, movement, and breathing practices for your healing and personal transformation. And most of our work now is with plant medicine. And you can go to our website, which is with this video in the description if you want to check out the work that we do. But what I want to do now is introduce Ken Catbird Dunn, who I've had the opportunity of knowing now for some time. We've sat and had coffee, and we share a lot in common. We're both individuals in long-term recovery. We're both meditation teachers. And we both see the value, the strong value in these practices and not only staying in recovery, but thriving. So thank you for joining me today, Ken. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Eddie. I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah. So how did you get into meditation? Was it before you found recovery, after?
I would say meditation was my gateway to recovery. I had been working with a therapist and I was dealing with some intrusive thoughts. And I actually, at that time, thought that I may suffer from OCD because I was having intrusive thoughts that were really preventing me from being present in my life. And I didn't want to take medication, pharmaceuticals to deal with those symptoms. So I found meditation and I had no prior experience with it. I was actually a little bit afraid of it
Mm,
because, it sounded kind of woo woo and I had a lot of misconceptions, and I started meditating just to see how it might go, and it was a little difficult at first because I was doing it on my own,
mm,
just researching the internet, finding materials. And interestingly enough, within about 2 weeks of regular daily practice, I started noticing some benefit and some distance from those obsessive thoughts. And it was at that time where I realized, hey, this is working, where I hadn't quite realized, I didn't quite accept at that point that I had a problem with addiction.
mm.
But I thought to myself, I wonder if I could use this mindfulness stuff as a way to moderate my drinking, so do something, right? Like try to get some relief.
Drink successfully.
Yeah, right. And so I found a program called Refuge Recovery, which is still
Hmm.
around. And
Hmm.
lo and behold, there was a meeting actually just 30 minutes from my house.
Hmm.
And I went to those meetings with the idea that I was going to moderate. That program is an abstinence-based program, but I thought
Sure.
I could figure it out.
Yeah, you'll negotiate with the program.
Right, exactly. But in about 3 months, of abstinence, because I knew I needed to be abstinent, at least at that time, I realized I actually needed recovery. That recovery was my path forward. And I threw myself into it, threw myself into my
Mm.
recovery, threw myself into mindfulness and meditation. And here I am 8+ years later. And my life is so much better now than I ever could have imagined it was going to be before I sat down on that cushion for the first time.
We should point out that Refuge Recovery is a Buddhist-based program that's an alternative for many people to the 12-step model, although we know many people who do both.
Mm-hmm.
People who go to AA or NA, and then they also take in Refuge Recovery. And I should also point out there's another program that's similar to Refuge Recovery called Recovery Dharma.
Right.
They both take a similar approach,
Yeah.
I would say. And
Yeah. I practice with Recovery Dharma
yeah,
currently.
yeah, yeah,
That's
me
where I
too.
spend my time.
But that Refuge Recovery book is really good. So, okay, so you had these intrusive thoughts and you started meditating. How did the meditation help you? You said you found some distance. How did it help you sustain your recovery in terms of those thoughts? Did the thoughts just disappear or something else?
That's a great question. It's a funny thing that really what happened was I just learned to become more comfortable with the experiences that were happening. Mindfulness, as you know, really teaches us to learn to be able to sit with the experiences as they arise. And, it's funny because a lot of people think that mindfulness and meditation are about relaxation. And, that's not the case. However, the more you meditate, the more you become comfortable with your experiences, the easier it is to relax in the middle of experiences, even
Yeah,
difficult ones, where
yeah.
it's possible to stay present and to be centered in the middle of like a very difficult experience.
You know Kevin Griffin, who wrote
I
One Breath?
do. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Kevin would say, if we, and I've said this all the time, I've worked in treatment centers for years and years and years doing groups, aftercare. And everybody that's ever been in a room with me when I was teaching meditation heard me say, if we're going to stay in recovery, we have to figure out how to learn to be okay with being uncomfortable. I got that from
Absolutely.
Kevin.
Right.
Yeah. And it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
learn how to bring compassion to our difficulty rather than judgment.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to pick on anybody, any organization, but some have some things that happen that I catch my eye. And I remember I was involved with 12 steps for 11 years. I have 18, coming up on 18 years.
Hmm.
And the first 11, I was very involved with 12 steps. And I would hear people say in meetings, they would stop and they go, don't go in there alone.
Hmm.
Don't go in there alone. Now, I think I understand what they're saying is when you get those kind of thoughts, call your sponsor, talk to somebody, get to a meeting. I get that. But don't we have to go in there alone eventually, don't we, Ken?
Yeah, well, I mean, nobody else can be aware of what's going on inside my head. There's a saying that I'm sure you've heard about comparing my insides to someone else's outsides, right? So that just illustrates that there's stuff happening inside me, thoughts,
Mhm.
feelings, sensations that are happening inside of me. And no one else can see that, right? Just me is, I'm the only one who's really aware of it. Now, empathy can help us see a little bit of what's going on in somebody
Mhm.
else's experience.
Mhm.
But really the deep understanding happens inside. And so, um, yeah, it's really useful to be able to be aware of what's going on inside and then to be able to share that out,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But the only way to really become aware of what's going on inside is to go inside and
Yeah.
to kind of take a little bit of time to really give all of the attention, if you need to, closing the eyes or casting the eyes downward, whatever it is, so
Mhm.
that you can be fully aware of that internal experience with kindness, with compassion, without judgment, really see it for what it's worth. And then, sharing it out to someone else can be really valuable, but you've got to become more familiar with that. And I think the only way to do that is through compassion and kindness. And
And we can do it anywhere. We can be
yeah,
in a
it's true.
checkout line. We can
Yeah.
pause, take a breath, tune in, notice what's going on internally, notice what we're thinking. We can get in our car and sit, and before we're turning the key, go, am I angry? Am I in a headspace where I should be going out and taking this 3,000 pounds of metal and sending it down the highway at 60 miles an hour? Right?
Yeah.
But having said that, I we both teach at Asheville Community Yoga. You teach a class on Thursdays, I teach a class on Tuesdays. And I strongly advocate in my class that those who come do a daily practice. And I give them a handout with instructions on how to build and maintain a home practice. Everybody that comes to my class, because I feel so strongly, and I tell them, just 5 minutes. If you can do five, just start with five. And now I do more than five, and I'm guessing you do more than five most of the time, but sometimes that's all I got. But you know what? I do the five.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that. It's reminding me of a teacher that I sat with previously who said that they made sure that their cushion was easily accessible and that if, their one minimum requirement for themselves was to sit on the cushion. They didn't necessarily have to actually practice,
Yeah,
but they at least had to sit on the cushion. And of course, once you've sat down, what is the likelihood that you're actually going to practice? Chances go up pretty much.
sure, sure. And pick a spot where you're not watching TV. It's not
Right.
where you watch. It's not, it's a place that maybe is not dedicated exclusively to meditation. Maybe you sit and read, or something. But when you sit, you go, I know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So when you teach your class, All right. What do you notice most? Do you notice that people are coming in with this idea that they're supposed to quiet their minds and empty their minds, and if they don't do that, they can't meditate? Because I hear that all the time.
Yeah, I do hear that quite frequently. A lot of people talk about, and even people who say they would love to come to class,
Hmm.
but they won't come to class because their mind won't get still. They sit down and their
Hmm.
mind is busy and it's going 1,000 miles a minute. And those who show up or are willing to hear it, I say that's meditation.
That's it.
Becoming aware of the fact that your mind is really busy all the time.
Yeah.
It sometimes it can be frustrating, and that's part of the practice as
Yeah.
well. Can you sit with that?
I tell people I've been meditating for over 40 years. Not every day. I miss the time. But I said sometimes I sit down and I just sort of drop into some stillness and I'm able to really observe the experience. And sometimes I sit down and my mind is just batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And you know what? I don't look at that meditation as being any worse than the one where I find stillness. It's just different. And
Yeah.
and when I share this with people, I say what this tells me is maybe right now isn't the time I should be trying to do a complex problem or
Mm,
make that difficult phone call.
right.
Maybe I need to take some other practice to find some balance, ground myself, you know,
Yeah.
whether it's movement or whatever it is. So you are a coach. So you work with people, many of whom are in recovery, some who are working with some other issues. What do you think the main thing is that you try to help people with? What's the main thing that helps them the most when they come to you that you do?
Yeah, I think that question is, first of all, is a really good question, and I'd say the answer to it is mostly direct. I think mindfulness really helps to help people become calm, become resilient, and to uh, work through difficult experiences. That goes a long way, right? Just creating that groundwork of mindfulness, being able to sit with whatever is. And I think there's another deeper part to that where it's really helping people bring some compassion to whatever their experience is, and also bring compassion to those parts of themselves that maybe they struggle with, where it's just to recognize that it's okay to not be okay, and that there's really nothing that you need to fix about yourself, but that who you are is perfectly okay just as you are. And I think, when we can get to that place where we can realize, okay, we're never going to be perfect. We're all humans. No matter
Mhm.
how hard we try, we're never going to beat ourselves into shape. We're always going to have some parts that are going to be in struggle. There's always going to be some suffering. And if we can be with that, with the messiness of it all,
And
then
most of us come into recovery with guilt and shame.
yeah,
You hear it all the time. It doesn't matter whether you go to an AA meeting or a Recovery Dharma meeting or wherever, and it's painful. It's painful to hear, especially newcomers, just display the self-hatred, the self-loathing,
yeah,
the self-compassion piece. It's like this is just part of being human.
yeah,
It's messy sometimes.
yeah.
Can I accept this as being okay?
Yeah. I recently was asking a student, when will you become the person that you love and care for if you continue to talk to yourself as if you're the person you hate? Like if you are, it's okay to recognize that we have failings, right? And
Hmm.
also, if we focus our attention on the failings, then that's all we're ever going to see.
Yeah.
And at some point in time, you have to take the U-turn and say, okay, I'm good enough. I deserve my own love and care. And
Do you talk about loving kindness much with your the people, the meta
yeah,
practice?
I think it's hard to avoid it, right? I think that, as far as mindfulness
Could you
goes,
explain what it is for people who don't know?
sure. Well, there's a formal practice of loving kindness, which is a traditional meditation practice where you offer sentiments to a benefactor to a person who is maybe a neutral person, a difficult person, and hopefully yourself as well. And you might expand that out to, your neighborhood, the planet, the universe. And the idea is really to cultivate that state of loving awareness,
With some
rather than,
phrases.
yeah, there's some phrases, may you be happy, may you be at ease, may you be free from
Mhm.
suffering. And I encourage my mindfulness students to actually go inside and ask themselves, what do I most need? What is the
Mhm.
thing that my heart most needs for happiness or for contentedness? And then I ask them to offer that to themselves and offer that to the people that are the people that they're bringing into their practice. I
Mhm.
find for myself that one of the things that I notice most often is I don't feel safe. So that's a real important thing for me to offer both to myself and also to everyone else.
So that could be a phrase. May I be saved. May I be
Absolutely.
well. May I be protected. You
Yeah,
could just repeat those phrases to yourself. Some
absolutely.
people like to put a hand on their heart, close their eyes. That
Yeah,
could be a really self-nurturing, beautiful practice
absolutely.
when we're struggling.
Yeah.
Self-care.
Yeah, it is self-care. It's
Mhm.
really that simple. A lot of people think of self-care as like taking themselves out to play a round of golf or buying a new motorcycle or
Getting their
shopping,
nails done if
getting their
you're,
nails done,
or
right? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but really on the daily, that's those kind of things aren't sustainable. But what is sustainable is just to offer yourself some care,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
send some feelings of loving kindness to yourself, and have a routine that supports your wellness, those kinds of things. It's the
Hmm.
little things when it comes to self-care
Yeah.
that make the biggest difference, that you had mentioned earlier about having a consistent practice,
Okay.
and self-care is a consistent practice.
Do you have anybody that you're working with who's really developed a practice and maybe they're ready for a short retreat? If you talk to that, like a weekend retreat or anything like that? I know you've done retreats. I've done retreats.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say I don't currently have anybody,
Hmm.
any of the students that I'm working with right
Hmm.
now, maybe. And there are some that are already doing retreats,
Mm.
but that's been part of their experience all along. I don't know that there's anybody right now that's like maybe emerging to that place,
Hmm.
but
Hmm. That's certainly on the table.
it's on the table for sure.
So
Yeah.
you have a website that people can go to and learn more about you. If you would please share that right now.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the easiest way for people to find me is to look up Expedition Recovery using their favorite search engine. And my website is expedrec.com. That was not the wisest name because it's not easy to remember.
Mm.
I had my reasons for it, but lessons learned, right?
Yeah. Well, I will put that in the description. So if you're listening, just scroll down, you'll find it there and go and
Yeah.
check them out. And yeah, I mean, obviously they can come to our classes. I'm on Tuesday morning. You're Thursday, what time?
Thursday from 10:45 until
Yeah,
11:45.
and I'm 10:45 to 11:30. So you've got a workshop coming up. Now, I want to mention this video is being recorded in February of 2025. So, you know, keep that in mind because Ken's going to tell you he's doing a workshop on March 11th.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I've got a workshop coming up, and we're working through purpose, through finding your purpose,
Hmm.
cultivating your purpose. It's a 1 hour workshop. It's going to be on Zoom. I have an Eventbrite
Okay.
page to promote that. I can
So
give you a
all over the
link to that.
world,
All over the world,
they could be
anywhere
in
you want.
Manchuria enjoying
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
actually, a lot of people who come to my weekly, I do have a weekly drop-in group that's on Zoom as well.
Oh.
That's Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. And that's for people who are experiencing like overwhelm, overachieving,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
Is that
It's
on
a
your
week
website, that
that's
information?
that is on Eventbrite.
Eventbrite.
Yeah, I can provide a link for that as well.
Okay. If you give that to me, I'll make sure it's in the description, Ken.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
And then you've got a first weekend of May, you got something coming up as well.
Yep. Yeah, I like to do a couple backpacking retreats each year. These are a combination of connection with nature and mindfulness.
Hmm.
And so, it's a 2.5 day experience. People will learn some skills about backpacking so they can feel like they can prepare themselves to go out and do that thing, but also slow down and take time in nature. It's a good opportunity for a little bit of physical challenge and also just getting quiet and letting go of the outside world, going inside and connecting with something greater than ourselves.
So powerful. So powerful. All right. Well, Ken, I really appreciate you taking time with me. I haven't quite gotten with the catbird thing. It's still Ken to me.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
okay.
yeah. There must be a story behind that. I'll get it sometime when we have a few minutes off
Sure.
air. So anyway, thank you very much. And I think this is such a valuable conversation to have. And I hope those of you watching have found some benefit. Certainly feel free to reach out to Ken and obviously to us. Check out our website. I've got a YouTube channel that this is going to be on. And there's a lot of other videos on there as well. Many, many of them on recovery and of course on meditation as well. So thanks for watching. If you got a comment, please drop it in there. Give us a thumbs up if you like the video. And of course, if you want more of these videos, you really need to subscribe so you don't miss future videos as well. So thank you, Ken, for joining me.
Thank you, Eddie. I really appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you later.